Welcome to the Deconstructionist Deep Dive.
The podcast that doesn't just accept the story.
We break it.
We examine the pieces.
And expose the machinery inside. Let's dive in. What if the promise of no money down real estate isn't a path to freedom, but a trap designed to make you dependent on a guru? All right, today we are diving headfirst, really getting into the guts of the modern financial education machine. We're specifically targeting, the mechanics of one very prominent creative finance business model.
Yeah, a big one.
Our mission here is pretty straightforward. Dissect the system, look at the language they use, and really map out the deep psychological architecture, what we're calling the no money down guru trap.
And the material we're working with for this deconstruction, it's quite something, a real masterclass in persuasion, actually. We sat through, endured a 4-hour live Zoom presentation.
4 hours? Wow.
Yeah, and it's all framed as free education.
Yeah.
But let's be clear, this isn't some casual YouTube clip. It's a meticulously crafted engine.
Yeah.
A perfect example of a sophisticated loss leader, designed purely for conversion.
Absolutely. That 4 hours, the primary goal isn't really education in the true sense, is it? The goal is recruitment. Structured recruitment.
Exactly.
And that's precisely where our deconstructionist protocol comes in. We're not aiming to critique personalities here. Not interested in that.
No.
What we're doing is systematically dismantling this very persuasive communication style to really lay bare the underlying power structures. And crucially, the control mechanisms. The things designed to keep students, intellectually and financially hooked into the system.
It's really an intellectual battle against manufactured dependency. And for this whole system to even work, it first has to create its own little universe, right?
Yeah.
It's built on these non-negotiable axioms, core beliefs, stating truths you just have to, without question. And the very first one immediately draws a line in the sand. It defines who's in, who's smart, and who's basically out.
Okay, let's break that down. Segment 1, establishing the target and the false foundations, axioms, and importantly, the hidden risk.
Yeah, the risk they don't really talk about.
So, Axiom 1, the supremacy of creative finance. Specifically, they champion the subject to, or SubTo, method, and the language, the rhetoric around this. It's really intense, very polarizing.
Oh, yeah.
The stated truth is aggressive, like you said. Traditional methods, things like, paying cash for a property or getting a normal bank mortgage, they're not just presented as maybe slower or old-fashioned. No.
No, they're for knuckleheads. That's the word used.
Exactly. Knuckleheads, they're boring. Financially inferior. It's quite the claim.
What jumps out immediately is how conventional wisdom, secure, established methods, they're just demonized, pathologized even, dismissed completely.
Right.
The system has to elevate its own strategy, which, let's be clear, is high-risk SubTo, as the only superior path, the innovative way. But here's the thing. This is probably the biggest financial Trojan horse in the whole setup.
How so?
Because they conveniently hide, or at least seriously downplay, the mass fundamental vulnerability baked right into this SubTo strategy.
Okay, and this is where we really need to slow down and unpack it, because the entire financial foundation of this model, it feels like it's built on, regulatory quicksand.
That's a good way to put it.
When you do a subject to deal, you, the buyer, you're essentially taking over the seller's existing mortgage payments, right?
Correct.
And this is the absolute key part, the original mortgage. It stays in the seller's name. It's still secured by their credit.
Well, at the same time.
Simultaneously, the seller signs the deed, the ownership of the property, over to you, the investor.
And that transfer, the deed changing hands, that's the critical moment. That's the tripwire. Because this entire strategy, its viability, is completely tied to one single external factor, something the guru has zero control over.
Which is?
The continued non-enforcement of the due on sale clause by the big institutional lenders, the banks.
Okay, let's explain that clause, because if you actually read the fine print on, pretty much any standard residential mortgage contract in the U.S.
It's right there. Standard boilerplate.
The due on sale clause is standard, and it basically says that the entire remaining balance of the loan becomes immediately due, payable in full. If the property ownership, the deed, is transferred without the lender's explicit written permission.
Which, in a SubTo transaction, never happens. You don't get the lender's permission. That's the whole point.
So technically, legally, the moment that deed changes hands in a SubTo deal, that clause is triggered.
Yep, triggered. The guru model operates entirely, 100%, on the assumption that because lenders historically haven't always enforced this clause.
Why not? Why wouldn't they?
Well, often because maybe the market's stable or the interest rate on that old loan is lower than current market rates, so they're still making good money. Or it's just not worth the administrative hassle for one loan.
So they assume the banks just won't enforce it, ever.
Exactly. They take past inaction as a guarantee of future inaction.
But relying on a lender just deciding not to enforce their own contract, that's not a strategy, is it? That's hope. It's relying on a loophole staying open.
Precisely. And we have to really paint the picture of what happens when that hope fails. Because this is the fundamental hidden risk they gloss over.
Okay, so scenario time. Let's imagine the economic winds shift. Maybe interest rates shoot up significantly.
Right. Suddenly that nice 4% loan you took over looks very different to the bank when they can now lend that same money out at, say, 8%.
So the incentive for the bank to call the loan due changes drastically.
Dramatically. Or think bigger picture. Maybe it's not just rates. Maybe an institutional lender is under pressure, needs to clean up its balance sheet. Or maybe a new compliance regime comes in and they decide, you know what? We're just going to standardize enforcement across our entire loan portfolio. No more exceptions.
What happens then?
They have every legal right to accelerate that loan. They send out a formal notice. Demand for full payment. Let's say it's $300,000. And you've got, what, 30 days, 60 days maybe, to come up with it.
And the SubTo investor, the student who bought into this no money down dream.
They're suddenly scrambling. They need to find hundreds of thousands of dollars cash, like now, or refinance at potentially much higher current rates, if they even qualify.
Which might be tough if they were attracted to no money down in the first place.
Exactly. Or the bank forecloses. They lose the property. The seller, whose name is still on the original loan, their credit gets wrecked. It's a disaster.
So it really is a house of cards.
Yeah.
Built entirely on the hope of regulatory inaction and continued market stability, not on, sound legal footing or solid financial planning.
Not at all. And this brings up the core question, doesn't it? Why on earth would you build a massive, multi-million-dollar educational empire teaching a strategy that is so fundamentally fragile, so reliant on something completely outside your control?
There has to be a reason.
Oh, there is. It's because that enormous risk, the risk of the due on sale clause being called, it's systematically shifted. It's transferred away from the system operator, the guru,
and placed squarely onto
the student, the believer.
Which actually leads perfectly into their second core belief, doesn't it? Axiom 2. The moral imperative of OPM, other people's money.
Yes. The gospel of OPM.
The stated truth here is just as clear-cut as the first one, using your own personal capital, putting your own money into a deal. That's not just presented as maybe less efficient. It's painted as downright foolish, financially irresponsible even.
Right. The ideal state, the financial promised land they sell, is always no money out of pocket. Zero. Nada.
And the appeal of that, especially if you're just starting out or maybe don't have a lot of capital, it's undeniable, isn't it?
Hugely appealing. But the function of this axiom, why it's pushed so hard, it's pure control. It operates as a control mechanism specifically through risk transference.
Explain that. How does championing OPM transfer risk?
Well, think about it. By constantly hammering the idea that you must use OPM, the model systematically shifts all the capital risk, the risk of that due on sale clause being called, the risk of needing funds for unexpected major repairs, the risk associated with closing costs and fees. It moves all that risk away from the guru.
And onto who?
Down to the student, primarily. The student is now the one out there hustling, trying to convince private money lenders to fund their deal. And ultimately, some risk lands on the institutional lender, who still technically holds the original secured asset.
Meanwhile, the guru, what's their position in all this?
The guru. They're securing cash flow. They get massive upfront mentorship fees, sometimes tens of thousands of dollars. They get ongoing community access fees. Okay. If they partner on a deal, they might get a slice of the cash flow or appreciation.
All while bearing minimal personal financial liability if the deal goes south.
Precisely.
Yeah.
If that SubTo deal implodes, maybe the due on sale gets called, maybe a surprise $30,000 roof replacement pops up, who's left holding the bag financially?
It's the student and probably the private lender they managed to rope in.
Exactly. The guru's already collected their fees. They're insulated.
What's really fascinating to me here is how they deliberately shift the definition of competence.
Oh, yeah. That's subtle but really important.
Traditionally, you think of real estate competence as Understanding property valuation, market analysis, zoning laws, property management, financing
The
options.
actual nuts and bolts of real estate.
Right, this system, it subtly moves the goalposts. The required core competency isn't really about analyzing the property anymore. It becomes about capital recruitment.
Yes. Your main job as a student, chefs. It's less about finding a good deal and more about finding the money specifically. The private money to cover the transactional costs, the rehab budget, maybe even the initial payments.
And guess who positions themselves as the gatekeeper to that essential OPM?
The system itself, of course. The guru's community, their network.
It becomes the indispensable source. You need their Rolodex, supposedly filled with eager private lenders. You need their network connections. You need their specific deal structuring techniques to even attract that money.
It creates total student dependency. It's a really elegant, if cynical, control loop. Think about it. The riskier and harder the core strategy, SubTo, is to fund through traditional, safer channels.
The more desperately reliant the student becomes on the guru's proprietary network and methods to access that necessary OPM.
Bingo. You can't succeed without their system, their contacts.
So they establish the risky foundation, transfer the risk via OPM, create financial dependency. What's next?
Well, once they've got you financially reliant, they need to lock down your thinking. They enforce intellectual isolation. And that brings us to axiom 3, the exclusivity of the walled garden community.
Ah, the community. Always a big selling point.
Huge. But the rhetoric here is designed to be incredibly dismissive of anything outside the garden walls. It immediately sets up an us versus them dynamic.
How so?
Free content, stuff you might find on YouTube, blogs, books, even advice from traditional financial advisors, it's instantly labeled, it's just entertainment, it's trash. They won't actually help you make money.
So where does the real knowledge live, according to them?
Only inside their paid mentorship community. The SubTo community in this case.
Yeah.
That's the only place you can find the actionable secrets, the true path, the real education.
This sounds like a classic isolation tactic, very deliberate.
It absolutely is. Highly effective. We call it creating an epistemic bubble, basically an information bubble.
How does that work in practice?
By preemptively labeling all external sources of information or validation, think independent lawyers, accountants, experienced traditional brokers, anyone who might raise a red flag about, say, the due on sale clause, by labeling them all as knuckleheads or dinosaurs who just don't get the new, superior way.
They discourage you from ever seeking outside counsel.
Exactly. They compel the student to only seek answers and validation from within the system, from the guru or their approved lieutenants and senior students.
It fosters this deep intellectual dependency, doesn't it? If you have a serious question about the legal risks involved, you're actively discouraged from consulting, say, an independent real estate attorney who has no stake in selling you a course.
Right. You're told, ask in the community or bring it up on the coaching call, where, of course, the answer will always reinforce the system's narrative.
It actively prevents critical cross-referencing. It stops you from validating claims against external objective sources.
And that specific mechanism, discouraging external validation, controlling the information flow, insisting truth, only resides within the group. That's a key hallmark. You see it in high-control groups, even systems described as cult-like. It's designed for intellectual containment. Keep the thinking inside the walls.
Okay, so the foundations are laid. A risky strategy presented as elite, risk transferred via OPM, and intellectual questioning contained within a walled garden. Now, how do they keep people from questioning it? How do they protect this structure?
Now we get into the really interesting part, the psychological weaponry. Segment 2, the cognitive traps and hierarchy establishment.
Right.
So we've got this potentially shaky financial framework, this significant legal vulnerability with the due on sale clause. The system's biggest threat isn't the market collapsing necessarily. It's something much simpler.
What's that?
Critical thought. Someone inside actually stopping and thinking, wait a minute, does this really make sense? Is this risk acceptable?
So the system has to defend against that. How?
They do it brilliantly, in a way. They pathologize skepticism itself. They make thinking the enemy.
How do they frame that? I remember seeing this in the source material multiple times.
Yeah, the derived conclusion they push is that overthinking isn't a valuable tool for due diligence. No, it's framed as a personal character flaw, a weakness. It's positioned as the primary barrier holding you back from success.
Wow. So the very act of critical analysis is reframed as failure.
Exactly. They'll often say things like dumb people, or maybe they'll soften it to simple people or action takers. They succeed because they just do it. They act without questioning.
While the intelligent, analytical people, the ones who ask tough
They
questions.
get stuck in analysis paralysis. They overthink themselves into inaction. See the trap.
Yeah, it's potent because if you're listening to this and you are naturally analytical, maybe a bit skeptical, someone interested in data and really understanding the risks.
Which describes a lot of people drawn to finance.
Right. Being told that your thoughtful approach, your desire for diligence is actually what's wrong with you. That's a powerful emotional trigger, isn't it?
Huge trigger. It's a tactic designed explicitly to bypass your logical scrutiny,
Yeah.
to bypass critical due diligence.
Mm.
It makes the student feel, well, almost guilty for being careful or smart.
You feel this internal pressure to just shut down those alarm bells ringing in your head because the guru has just labeled those very alarm bells as the enemy of your success.
It's an incredibly sophisticated psychological control mechanism.
Mm.
Because once the system has successfully pathologized skepticism, it creates a perfect feedback loop for failure.
What do you mean?
If you, the student, end up failing, maybe your SubTo deal blows up, maybe you can't find OPM, the system is never presented as being at fault. It can't be.
Because questioning the system is overthinking, which is the real reason for failure.
Precisely. Lack of success is defined entirely as a personal failure. It's your mindset that was wrong. You didn't take enough massive action. It was never a flaw in the high-risk business model itself or the shaky legal ground of SubTo, or maybe the guru's advice wasn't great. Nope. It's always on you.
That's a perfect closed loop. The guru absolves themselves and the system of any responsibility.
Totally.
Yeah.
And the student, now feeling guilty and inadequate because of their poor mindset or lack of action, what are they pressured to do next?
Buy the next thing, presumably. The advanced course, the higher level coaching, more education to fix their flawed mindset.
Exactly. Which further monetizes their failure for the guru. It's a cycle.
Okay, so bypassing logic by attacking skepticism, what other tools are in this psychological arsenal?
Well, beyond just messing with logic, they use very specific, very powerful emotional triggers. These are designed to convert the audience, especially in that long, free presentation, from just passive listeners or leads into highly pressurized, ready-to-buy, obedient students.
That's trigger number one.
It's a classic combo. Manufactured reciprocity paired with manufactured scarcity.
Okay, break that down. Reciprocity first.
You sit through that 4-hour marathon session, right? All this free content, this supposed value bomb, that's the manufactured reciprocity. It's designed to lower your guard, make you feel like you owe the guru something for their time, their secrets, their knowledge.
You feel indebted.
Exactly. But then almost immediately, often towards the end, that feeling of indebtedness is weaponized by pairing it with manufactured scarcity. This ramps up the perceived value exponentially.
How do they create that scarcity?
Oh, you hear lines like, mentorship is currently sold out, but we're opening a few spots. Or, there are only 3 spots left for the advanced Morby method tier this quarter. Or the classic, this special price is only available for the next 48 hours, then it doubles.
Standard high-pressure sales tactics, basically.
Textbook. But look at the combined effect. The dynamic is incredibly potent. I've just given you so much amazing value for free. You now owe me your attention and probably your money. And you have to act right now because this incredible exclusive opportunity is about to vanish forever.
Yeah, that pressure cooker environment.
Yeah.
It definitely pushes people off the fence. It converts that free audience into highly motivated, often high-commitment applicants for the paid program. Less time to think, more pressure to act.
Exactly. Less time for that pesky critical thought they've already told you is bad for you.
Okay, reciprocity and scarcity. What else? You mentioned something about the guru's persona.
Ah, yes. This one is fascinating. It's the establishment and careful maintenance of the benevolent dictator persona.
Benevolent dictator. Sounds like a contradiction.
It is. That's why it works. We see really aggressive, sometimes downright demeaning language used quite frequently in these settings.
He's like, what?
We're talking about explicit insults hurled at the audience, or hypothetical dissenters, calling people knuckleheads, dumbasses, irresponsible, questioning their commitment. Really quite harsh stuff.
But how is that benevolent? How do they justify that?
It's always immediately framed, immediately justified as tough love. Or you hear things like, I'm just being brutally honest, or I'm telling you the truth that nobody else has the guts to tell you.
Implying it's for your own good, even though it feels like an attack.
Precisely. It's positioned as caring, even though the delivery is aggressive.
Now, hang on. Let's be fair. Sometimes genuine mentorship can be tough, right? A good coach might push you hard, call you out. How do we tell the difference between that, a genuine push for excellence, and this calculated manipulation you're describing?
That is an excellent and crucial distinction to make. Genuine tough love, the kind a good coach or mentor uses, it seeks to elevate the student's performance. It's focused on helping you meet an objective standard, overcome a specific obstacle. It's about the work, the skill.
Okay. And the manipulation.
The calculated manipulation, like this benevolent dictator persona, it seeks to break down the student's ego. It attacks their sense of self-worth, their critical resistance. The goal isn't necessarily better performance, it's compliance. It's about enforcing the guru's subjective authority.
So it attacks the person, not just the action or the skill gap.
Exactly. And by doing that, the guru immediately establishes a very rigid hierarchy. Think about it.
Yeah.
If you can sit there, maybe even in a public forum like a Zoom call or a live event, be called a dumbass or told you're irresponsible, and you still stay, you still believe, you still want to join.
You've essentially passed a loyalty test. You've shown you can take the abuse.
You got it. You become conditioned. You start to accept that the leader's harshness must be for your own good, because why else would they do it? And therefore, their word, their methods, their system, it must be obeyed without question.
Because questioning the leader, questioning the method, now becomes synonymous with being one of those knuckleheads or dumbasses they were just insulting.
Precisely. It becomes proof that you deserve the criticism. It's a highly effective system for enforcing conformity and ensuring the system's core narrative is never seriously challenged from within.
You can't question the model because that would mean questioning the motives or wisdom of the very person who is supposedly trying to help you, the person you maybe just paid thousands of dollars to.
Locks you in psychologically.
Wow. Okay, so we have logic bypass, emotional triggers like reciprocity, scarcity, the dictator persona. What else? Is there a structural element?
Absolutely. And it's a big one. They construct complexity barriers primarily by using jargon as a veil of expertise.
Ah, the buzzword.
Oh, the endless buzzwords. Think about all the specialized terminology they deploy. It's relentless, and it makes the whole process sound like, I don't know, quantum physics or something.
Give me some examples from this creative finance world.
Subject to, obviously, seller finance, novation agreements, notes and deeds of trust, wraparound mortgages, transactional funding, hard money lending, and then, of course, proprietary branded terms like the Morby method or whatever specific system they're selling.
It sounds complicated. Overwhelming, even.
And that is entirely the point. It's designed to overwhelm the listener, especially a beginner.
So, what's the simple truth? What's being hidden or obscured by this avalanche of specialized jargon?
The reality is the underlying financial concepts, they're not that complicated. We're talking about leveraging debt. We're talking about acquiring capital from different sources, basic equity splits between partners, risk assessment.
Stuff you'd learn in an introductory finance course, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. These concepts are fundamental. But the jargon, it creates this dense, seemingly impenetrable veil of required expertise. It deliberately fosters the impression that this knowledge is arcane, secret, incredibly difficult to master on your own.
And who holds the keys to unlock this secret knowledge?
It establishes a kind of priesthood, doesn't it? Where the guru and their inner circle, their certified coaches, they become the necessary, the indispensable interpreters of this secret knowledge. Only they can guide you through the complexity.
Let's take one you mentioned, transactional funding. It sounds pretty technical.
It does.
Yeah.
But what is it really? It's essentially just a very, very short-term loan, like ultra short, often lasting less than 24 or 48 hours.
What's it used for?
It's typically used to bridge a funding gap in a specific type of deal, often a double closing, where you need funds to buy a property just moments before you resell it. It covers closing costs or initial cash requirements in these complex, fast-moving structures.
So it's a tool, a specific financial instrument.
It's a tool. A necessary one in certain scenarios, yes, but it often comes with absolutely exorbitant fees. We're talking several percentage points charged just for borrowing the money for a day or two.
But how do they use the jargon around it?
By naming it, defining it in their specific way, and then implying or sometimes stating outright that only their network, the recommended funders, can execute this properly or efficiently.
They make it sound proprietary, like you can't just go find a transactional lender yourself.
Exactly. And the purpose becomes twofold. First, it drastically increases the perceived value of their system, their mentorship. The knowledge seems too complex, too specialized to possibly acquire independently.
And second,
it creates a significant financial and logistical barrier to entry, a barrier that conveniently only joining their paid community, getting access to their preferred vendors, can solve. If you pay us, the implicit promise goes, we will translate these secrets for you and we will connect you to the exclusive resources you need.
It's the monetization of complexity. Or maybe the monetization of manufactured complexity and confusion.
That's a perfect way to put it.
Okay, so when you step back and look at all these pieces together, the financial risk transfer, the bypassing of logic, the emotional manipulation, the hierarchy, the jargon, the isolation, it really starts to look less like a unique real estate strategy.
And much more like an extremely effective, highly polished repackaging of existing, proven control systems. It's not new, it's hybridized. It borrows from playbooks that have worked for decades in other areas.
Okay, let's get into that. Segment 3, cross-system parallels and core deceptions. Where else do we see these kinds of mechanisms?
Well, the source material, the structure, the language. They reveal some pretty textbook parallels. You can see exactly where this playbook comes from. The first, and probably the most easily recognizable comparison for many people, is multi-level marketing, MLM.
Okay, how does the guru model parallel MLM structures?
The core business model seems fundamentally recruitment-focused, doesn't it? While they definitely showcase real estate deals, they have to, for credibility.
Right, you need the proof.
Exactly. But the primary presentations, especially that long free one, they rely very heavily on highly glamorized success stories. And often, who are the stars of those stories?
Students who've made it.
Students who succeeded within the system, meaning quite often students who went on to become mentors themselves or coaches or affiliate recruiters within that same ecosystem. Their success is tied to bringing more people in.
So the deals themselves might be secondary to the recruitment engine.
That's the key insight, I think. For the guru, for the operator at the top, the primary revenue driver appears to be recruiting students into the paid community. It's the mentorship fees, the high-cost advanced training, the live event tickets, the recurring membership dues. That's where the big reliable money is.
And the actual real estate deals, the SubTo transactions.
They serve a crucial but perhaps secondary purpose. They function primarily as powerful, visible social proof. They are the flashy results, the trophies, used to justify the high cost of the education, and, critically, to drive further student recruitment.
So the system mainly monetizes the teaching of the strategy and the access to the network that facilitates it, not necessarily the successful long-term execution of the deals themselves by the rank-and-file students.
It seems that way. If a student's deal fails, well, the gurus still collected the tuition, didn't they?
Right.
And if a student's deal succeeds, fantastic. That success story becomes fresh marketing material to fuel the next round of recruitment. It looks like a system designed primarily to monetize the churn of hopeful students chasing the dream.
Okay, MLM is one parallel. You mentioned another one earlier that felt darker.
Yes. The second parallel, which helps explain some of the more aggressive tactics we discussed in segment 2, draws directly on dynamics often observed in high-control groups, sometimes labeled cult dynamics.
How does that manifest?
It's established most clearly through that intense US versus them ideology we talked about. The SubTo community, or whatever the group calls itself, is constantly pitted against all outsiders.
Who are the outsiders in this context?
Everyone else, basically. Traditional real estate agents, they don't understand creative finance. Banks, they're slow and stupid. The knuckleheads doing boring cash deals. Lawyers who raise concerns. They're just trying to kill deals. Anyone practicing conventional finance or expressing skepticism, they're all part of the ignorant them.
And the community members are the enlightened us.
Exactly. This controlled language environment, the constant reinforcement of the US versus them mentality, it creates immense internal cohesion and loyalty. It's essential for maintaining that epistemic bubble, that walled garden.
There's safety and superiority inside the walls, danger and ignorance outside.
You're either in the circle with the innovators, the action takers, the soon-to-be rich, or you're out, lumped in with the losers, the haters, the knuckleheads who just don't get it. It's a powerful social pressure.
And within that, us. Who holds the ultimate authority?
Critically, the leader, the guru. They position themselves, implicitly or explicitly, as the sole source of reliable truth, the ultimate unquestionable authority on the only path that works.
And the tactics we discussed earlier, the aggression followed by tough love, the scarcity, the benevolent dictator act, all reinforce that absolute authority structure.
Absolutely. You must submit your own judgment, your own critical thinking, to the vision and the dictates of the leader if you want to succeed within their system. Questioning is disloyalty. Questioning is failure.
Okay, so if we synthesize these parallels, the MLM recruitment focus, the cult-like control tactics, we should be able to really clearly expose the core deceptions that make this whole thing run. Let's try to cut through the noise, look past the flashy promises, and define what the system truly sells versus what it actually delivers.
Agreed. Let's start with the biggest, most seductive promise of all, the no money down illusion.
What's the core deception here?
Well, on the surface, it feels incredibly liberating, right? You can acquire property, build wealth without using any of your own precious cash. It bypasses the biggest barrier for most people. But it's fundamentally a logical fallacy wrapped in risk obfuscation. It's a trap. It often keeps students perpetually cycling, chasing ever more complex OPM structures, dealing with transactional lenders, hard money, private investors, always trying to patch together the next deal with none of their own skin in the game.
So what's the liberating truth? What happens when you see through that illusion?
The liberation comes when you realize the fundamental truth they obscure. The promise of no money down conveniently hides the fact that the lender, the original bank, via the due on sale clause, or the new private lender, holds the secured asset and a huge chunk of the power. You, the student, aren't getting a free ride. You are acquiring massive debt risk. You're acquiring significant legal risk, primarily that due on sale time bomb. You're acquiring operational risk, repairs, vacancies, etc.
While the guru
is the primary beneficiary. They've captured your tuition, your fees, your attention, maybe a piece of the deal, all the potential downside. It remains externalized, shoved onto you, the student, and onto your funding sources. It's not no money down for the system. It's no risk for the guru.
Okay, deception one. The no money down illusion is actually risk transference. What's next?
Deception two. The benevolent dictator. We touched on this already.
The aggressive tough love.
Exactly. This is pure emotional control, skillfully disguised as mentorship or necessary honesty.
And the liberation impact of seeing through this deception.
It's realizing that the aggressive language, the public criticism, the explicit insults, it's almost never genuine tough love aimed at improving you. It's a calculated tactic. It's designed to condition your submission to authority. It deliberately works to break down your autonomous critical thinking.
The moment you accept being demeaned or insulted in the name of education.
You've effectively surrendered your mental sovereignty, haven't you? You become compliant. Not just compliant in learning the course material, but potentially compliant in how you approach other challenges, other authorities, maybe even in life outside the course. It trains obedience.
That's a heavy thought. Okay, deception three.
Deception three. The walled garden community. The exclusive haven of truth.
What's the reality behind that?
This is institutional obedience, codified and enforced through social pressure and information control.
And the liberation impact here, when you see the walls for what they are.
It's recognizing that the community environment, which is often touted as this wonderfully supportive learning network, and maybe parts of it feel that way sometimes, is ultimately designed to intellectually enslave its members, in a sense.
By cutting off outside perspectives.
Precisely. It isolates members from dissenting viewpoints. It actively prevents independent verification of the core legal and financial claims the entire system rests upon. The ultimate goal isn't open inquiry. It's to ensure that all capital, all attention, all trust, all belief flows back into the guru's specific narrative. It locks members into a closed loop designed for perpetual extraction of their resources, time, money, belief, and future recruitment potential.
Okay. This paints a pretty comprehensive picture of the machinery inside. Let's move to the final assessment. Segment 4, terminal vulnerability and liberation.
Right. Let's pull back for the final strategic overview. We've meticulously established, I think, that this kind of system isn't really some groundbreaking financial method revolutionizing real estate.
What is it then?
It appears to be a masterfully constructed cognitive trap. It uses the highly specialized, often intimidating veneer of creative finance education primarily to disguise what it truly is, a hierarchical recruitment and capital acquisition system.
It's a business model that fundamentally monetizes access. Access to perceived secrets, access to a controlled network, access to the guru's authority.
And crucially, a model that systematically transfers the most significant legal and financial risks away from the operator and onto the participants. But, and this is key, for all its psychological brilliance, for all the high-pressure sale tactics and manufactured urgency,
there's a weak point.
It has a single, potentially catastrophic point of failure.
If Achilles heel.
That the guru and the system work tirelessly to downplay, obfuscate, and keep hidden from view.
And we need to hammer this home again. What is that fatal flaw?
We absolutely must reiterate the primary vulnerability. The entire financial structure of these subject to deals, the bedrock upon which this whole empire is built, is critically, fundamentally dependent on one thing: the continuous non-enforcement of standard due-on-sale clauses by major institutional lenders.
The foundation of sand we talked about right at the beginning.
Exactly. This is the core external instability that is deliberately minimized or outright ignored in the pitch. Think about the imbalance in that 4-hour presentation. How much time and detail was spent on, say, how to talk to a motivated seller, how to frame the deal, how to find private money.
Hours. Intricate scripts. Role-playing.
Right. Versus how much time was spent honestly and thoroughly exploring the catastrophic legal and financial consequences for the student if a lender does decide to accelerate the loan.
Almost none. Maybe a cursory mention framed as extremely rare or easily handled.
Precisely. It's glossed over because it's the kill switch. If the broader economy shifts significantly, if rising interest rates make those old low-rate loans suddenly very unattractive for banks to leave on the books,
Or if just one single major institutional lender, say Wells Fargo or Chase, decides, for internal policy reasons or due to regulatory pressure, to start aggressively enforcing those clauses across their portfolio.
the domino effect across the entire SubTo investment landscape could be immediate and absolutely devastating.
And the students within this system, the ones who've been conditioned to believe that skepticism is a character flaw and the guru has all the answers.
They are entirely dangerously unprepared for that scenario. They haven't been taught how to mitigate that risk because acknowledging it fully would undermine the entire premise of the easy money being sold.
So that is the massive systemic risk, the one that is completely externalized. Which brings us back to a crucial question: risk distribution. When this house of cards inevitably shivers or even collapses, who truly pays the price?
Understanding the risk distribution is absolutely the key to unlocking the real revenue model here. Let's be blunt. The system operator, the guru at the top, profits handsomely. They profit from dissemination.
Meaning the selling of the information and access.
Yes. The massive mentorship fees, the recurring community access charges, the control over the network, maybe preferred vendor kickbacks, potentially partnership splits on deals brokered through the system. They have multiple streams of income derived from the system itself.
And their exposure to the core risk of the strategy being taught.
Minimal to none. They bear almost none of the fundamental legal or financial risk inherent in the high-risk SubTo strategy itself. That risk doesn't sit on their balance sheet.
So where does it sit? Who absorbs the systemic risk?
The systemic risk, the very real risk of loan acceleration, the risk of ending up in a legal dispute with the original seller whose name is still on that mortgage, the risk of chasing bad deals because you need volume, the risk of getting eaten alive by high fees from transactional or hard money lenders. All of that risk is externalized. It's pushed entirely onto the student.
And by extension.
And by extension, onto the private lenders the student managed to convince to fund their deals, who might also be unprepared for the legal complexities if things go wrong.
It's like the guru sells you the map to a minefield, collects a hefty fee for the map, tells you mines rarely explode, and then watches from a safe distance.
That's a stark, but perhaps accurate analogy. The guru sells the match, but the student is the one standing in the potential gas leak.
Which is precisely why the objective of this entire deep dive, this deconstruction, has to be cognitive liberation.
Exactly. The purpose isn't just critique. It's to shatter the guru's throne, to expose the hidden mechanics, the control levers, the psychological tricks they rely on to maintain power and extract value.
So for you, the listener, the learner, the person perhaps considering one of these programs, the call to action is clear. You must reject the false dichotomy they constantly present.
What's the false dichotomy?
That your only choices are either passive consumption of boring mainstream financial advice, the knucklehead path, or blind, unquestioning allegiance to a self-appointed financial king who holds the secrets, the enlightened path.
That's not the real choice at all, is it?
Not even close. True empowerment, genuine financial capability, it lies somewhere else entirely.
Where?
It resides in rigorous critical thinking, in diligent cross-referencing of claims against objective sources, in autodidacticism, teaching yourself, seeking knowledge widely, and in the deliberate, competence-based building of wealth that relies on verifiable legal principles and sound financial structures.
Not on hoping regulatory loopholes stay open forever, or on manufactured fear of missing out.
Exactly. The final command, if you will, is this: do not mortgage your mind to a self-appointed king. Your intellect, your skepticism, your ability to verify those are your greatest assets. Protect them.
And that's our deep dive for this week.
Remember, the most dangerous illusion is the one you don't know you're in.
But now you know. So here's our question for you. Where will you see this exact guru deception pattern playing out in the next 24 hours? In a YouTube ad, a social media post, or a conversation? Once you see the machinery, you can't unsee it.
Let us know in the comments. Question the narrative, deconstruct the dogma, see the system.
We'll see you next time. Stay skeptical. Thank you for joining us.